Hi, I'm Lady Charmaine, and my guest today is a producer and director of two documentaries, You Saved Me and Happily Ever After, A Positive Image of Black Marriage. His website, blackandmarriedwithkids.com, was named one of 2010's most read blogs by Parenting Magazine. He and his wife are also contributors to Essence.com by providing content about married life and relationships. And they're here today to talk about their new documentary entitled Still Standing. It's a DVD to help married couples through difficulty and triumph. Help me welcome Lamar Tyler to the show. How you doing, Lamar, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm doing excellent, and thank you for having me.
You are so welcome, and I also have my husband on the line today, Joe Bassett. Hey, babe, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here.
Good. Well, Lamar, first off, I want to talk to you about you and your wife. This is such a great documentary, Still Standing. And I want to get a little bit of your history. How did you and your wife meet? And then how did you both come to want to do this documentary?
We met actually through a mutual friend. I was working with one of her friends that she grew up with. And we were actually in two different cities. I was in the D.C. area, and she was down in Tidewater, Virginia area around Virginia Beach, Hampton, Virginia, that part of Virginia. So, she was up on my end one time. We met. I was traveling at the time, told her I was, coming to Norfolk soon, and, could we go out on a date? We went on that date, and she had been stalking me ever since. or at least she's not on the interview, I can say that. If she was here, it'd be a different story, but that's my side of it.
And how long have you two been married?
It'll be 7 years this year.
Wow, congratulations. And
thank
so
you.
Through your 7 years of marriage, how did this, because it's a beautiful ministry that I see both of you have together, how did this whole blackandmarriedwithkids.com website come about, and then your other two documentaries?
Yeah, we actually had, it was back in December 2007, we were talking about starting a website or a blog and wanted to do something we were passionate about. So if it took off, 4 or 5 years from then, we still feel like doing it. And what we were passionate about was these conversations we kept having around relationships in the African-American community and just marriage in general and the way it was viewed in such a negative fashion. It was like when someone would come into a room and say, hey, I'm getting married, or talk about marriage, people would suck their teeth and roll their eyes and tell them don't make the same kind of mistake I made. And we're like, this is when you're telling people you're engaged. I mean, this would be one of the happiest days of your life. And I mean, just so much negativity around marriage. So we said there has to be other couples that are happily married, that are enjoying their marriages, enjoying their spouses, and it just don't fit the stereotype that we always see on television and newspapers and everything along those lines. So we started the website, and it just took off and shot up, immediately thereafter.
How did you market your website for people to know that your website existed?
What we did, I'd say probably the most important thing was just relationships. And we reached out to a lot of other websites and bloggers that were out there, people that would have a similar type of audience to the site that we had, and let them know that we were there and asked, them, could they share our site with their readers, or could they share some of our content, or we might have a great article that their readers would like to write. And the other sites on the web, they were just very welcoming to us. I think they realized that we had something that our community needed. And they had no problem 99% of the time with sharing, our content with their audiences, or letting other people know that, hey, this is another website out there called blackandmarriedwithkids.com, and they do exist. They're doing something positive, and we want to get behind it.
Now, what examples did you have of marriage for you growing up? Did you have any good examples?
I did. I grew up in a single parent home, but my grandparents were married for over 50 years. And, what I always reflect back on was my grandfather. My father, I knew who my father was. He was like marching kind of in and out of my life. But my grandfather was always there. He was the, real leader of our family. Him and my grandmother were always there. Not to say they had a perfect marriage, but they definitely had a marriage. They definitely were the backbone of our family. So, just kind of looking back on that a lot of times, I think that's the importance of, even if mom and dad aren't in the home together, it still needs to be married people around your children so they still get a glimpse of what marriage is and what marriage can be.
Good. Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, Lamar, I just want to say I really enjoyed the documentary you put out, and it shows that not, every marriage is perfect, and that couples go through things. I think that is maybe something that gets overblown when you are first married, the problems that you encounter. I think your documentary does a good job at showing that, the problems every couple has, but they're able to work through it if they're both committed. I think you did a very good job of showing that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's something, with the web, that's something we've been trying to do with the website from day one, to show that, your marriage won't be perfect. There'll be different situations that rise up. There'll be, maybe conflict and disagreements. Excuse me. But overall, you can work through it. And you have the ability that other couples have been through whatever you've gone through, and they've made it. So what we try to do with the website, do these films, are kind of bring those couples to light, to inspire people and give them hope that if I see this other couple has gone through what we're dealing with and they've made it, then we can make it too.
Right.
One thing you also highlighted, I believe, in the video Still Standing, is different situations. Couples that went through financial situations, a couple that went through a sickness dealing with cancer, a couple that went through infidelity. And I think that because marriages at some point may experience all of those, and how do you still stay together? That's the one thing I thought that was great. What made you want to go from doing a blog now to wanting to go do documentaries?
Well, back in 2009, we were doing a site, and like I said, it took off. It was successful, but we said, what can we further do to get the message out there, get the brand out there to reach more people? And I had a friend that was doing films at the time, and I said, hey, how about me and Ronnie were talking. We said, how about we try a documentary? So we just set out to do it. We tried it, and we did it. We didn't know what we were doing. Probably 6 months before that, we didn't even own a home video camera. We kind of just stepped out on faith and did it, and it was, again, very well received. And I think it just goes to show how hungry people were to see positive images of themselves, and how hungry, like the married couples were that came out to see people talk about marriage and have something positive to say about marriage, or people to be able to try to lend some type of information that could help their marriages out and not just tear their marriages down.
Right.
How did
Lamar,
you
I got a question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm sorry about that. As he was talking about that, I just had a question. I know your website, blackandmarriedwithkids.com. Are there specific challenges that African Americans have with marriage as opposed to maybe some other nationalities that you address in your website?
I think, as far as challenges, I think a lot of the challenges kind of go across the board. Like in the film Still Standing, like you see the 6 different topics that the couples covered. But those 6 topics are pretty probably at the root of divorce for most divorces, if you look in any community. When you talk about financial troubles, infidelity, naysayers and negativity around your marriage, communication issues. I mean, I think a lot of that stuff is the same. Inherently, I think, I would say that maybe 90% of everything is the same, but it's like that little 10% that's different, kind of based on your culture and how you handle things and the expectations of things. I would even venture to say maybe a lot more of it is going into marriage than once you actually get there. Because like even now, a lot of people get divorced, and that's not just black people; it's white people, Latino, whatever. But I would say like when you get ready to get married, I would think there's a lot more negativity around marriage in our community than it is in other communities. In mainstream culture, I think it's more so expected for you to get married. Once you get to a certain age, but in a lot of pockets of our community where you have generation of single parenting, maybe auntie and uncle aren't married, your neighbors aren't married. It's pretty much the opposite. Almost like people would expect you to stay single. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is they don't expect you not to have babies. It's like, almost like nothing's wrong with being single and having babies. But when you say you get married, then something's wrong with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was talking to a young lady, and I was talking to her about marriage. And I never forget, she told me that she had never seen any positive marriages. So that is why she chose not to want to be married. Now, none of her girlfriends, all of them have children. None of them are married. She said because she's never seen a positive, and she is 30 years old. I was so surprised at that. How do you feel about that?
We've heard that same thing so many times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've done screenings, and we do Q&A and discussions at all the screenings me and my wife attend. So at the end, there's always somebody stand up and say, well, I don't want to get married. And if you ask them why, that's always the reason, because I don't see any positive marriages around me. So that's why one of the things we've done is whenever we speak and we do workshops, we may speak at churches, we go different places speaking around marriage. A call to action we always make is for couples that are happily married to let people know about it. Because that's one of the main issues. The thing is that when somebody is not happy, who do they tell? They tell everybody. Whether you want to hear it or not, whether you know them or not, they're going to let you know how unhappy they are in their marriage. But for couples that are happy, most of the time we just keep that to ourselves. And back before, maybe that was good enough to just kind of show it inside of your home. But our community now is really at a point where we have to show it outside of our home in our community to let people know that, hey, this positive, happy, healthy relationship and lifestyle is something they can achieve. And then we have to also break it out of our mindsets that, regardless of what's going on with everybody else, that doesn't necessarily dictate or mandate what my life will be. Right. So I saw there were people getting divorced around me, but that didn't stop me from ever wanting to be married, or never led me to believe that I would have a marriage that wouldn't work.
Now, right. And because a lot of, there's a lot of infidelity in marriages, and a lot of single people see that in marriages, and they also experience that in their own relationships. Do you think that's why they don't want to get married? Because it's like, if they're cheating while we're not even married, then that's going to take place in marriage. So why, if I'm going to be experiencing the same type of hurt, so why get married?
Well, I think that's probably some of it. Like, a lot of it stems from, fear of different issues like that. But again, one of the major problems we see with our community is that doesn't stop people from having children with those people.
Good point.
I mean, the same people they say they're afraid to get married to from X, Y, and Z, they have babies by. And that having a child with that person is much more long lasting than the marriage. Because whether you should or not, you can actually remove yourself from that marriage. Once you have a child with somebody, you can't remove yourself from having a child with that person.
True.
So, I mean, I'd say, going back to the things specific to the African-American community, that's one of the issues, I think, about the way that it's viewed. But again, it just goes into choosing the right person, doing your due diligence up front, and making sure you have those kind of conversations, talking about what your goals are, finding out what that person's background is, finding out what their basis of their faith is, finding out just really what makes them drive, what makes them tick, and if the two of you are compatible in so many different ways.
And too, because a lot of times you could be talking to someone who parents may have been married for years, but what kind of marriage did they see? Because once you get married, a lot of times, a lot of those things that they grew up with come into the home, and then you find out they may have had a man in the home, but not necessarily a father, not necessarily a husband. So there's so many more things that I found out that really has to be talked about. Because you might say, oh, yeah, their parents been married for years. But then when you find out, but the relationship was never there, may not have ever had a father-son relationship or even a mother-daughter relationship, to really see those good examples. So I'm really realizing there's so much more to even talk about, even if they did have a two-parent home. What kind of home was that home?
Definitely. I mean, you hit it on the head. That's one of the things we talked about in our very first movie, Happily Ever After, was how the way you were brought up, and the environment you were brought up in, and whether it was a two-parent home or single family home, whether you were the only child or one of many, how all that plays into your marriage and what you expect and your roles and responsibilities, and how you think your spouse should act towards you, how you think you should act as far as disciplining the children. All that plays into it, and it all comes from exactly the way we were raised ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Where do you?
That's a key point. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just saying that was a key point because the roles and responsibilities. I think especially in the Black American community, we can do a better job of preparing for marriage. I think, like you mentioned, we talk about marriage as being such a thing to keep away from and not to do, is not really encouraged. But then when people do get married, it's a lot of times based on just emotions, based on having a nice wedding, and those things that are superficial and not really preparing you for what you're going to encounter in marriage.
Definitely. I would totally agree.
Because it's funny, because me and my husband, we always talk about this one. I never forget what time we had come home from church, right? And we were both exhausted, so we were taking a nap before we were going back to night service. And so we were laying down, and my husband said he was hungry. Now, I grew up in a single-parent home. And so in my home, we grew up, it was called, and my mother would call it, go for what you know. So if you're hungry, you go and get yourself something to eat, right? So that's how I grew up. So my husband was laying down, and we both were laying down asleep. He rolls over and tells me that he's hungry. So my thing was, go fix you something to eat. You're hungry. So, because in his household, that's what his mom would do. So I had to gently remind him, you didn't marry your mama, because I brought in You know what I was brought up with, go for what you know. And then he was brought in, I guess if his dad said he was hungry, mom would get up even though she's sleepy. And needless to say, we've never had that conversation again. Ain't that right, sweetie?
Yeah, that's right. So 13 years later, we still got go for what you know going on around the house.
So that one didn't take long.
My mom, both my parents would work, and I always saw my mom cooking. She always cooked. And my dad would come home. He would, relax and watch TV, catch the game, and my mom would make the plates. And that was what my experience growing up. So I just assumed that, hey, that was going to happen. But I learned quickly. That was during the first, first month or so of the marriage?
Yes.
See, and to tell you the truth, I mean, those are the conversations without a mature married couple sharing with a couple that's engaged or newlyweds. That's something they wouldn't know to discuss beforehand.
Right.
But it's something that could easily get out of hand in some situations as well.
Right.
And another thing that young people don't even realize, not young people, just anybody that's getting married, when you get married, because of course you're blending two different ways of how you do things, even the simplest thing, how you fold clothes. Linen clothes, how you fold a big towel, how you fold a small towel. My husband and I didn't realize that we were folding clothes. Well, his mama taught him this way. My mama taught me this way. And it might be something small, and how you stack them in the linen closet. It's like little small stuff that you don't even realize, that takes place in a household. Do you put food in the plastic containers, or do you just put the entire pot in the refrigerator? Or do you transfer the food? It may be something that's small, but it can be somebody else's pet peeve. And so my husband and I, we had to learn how to really work together. And so, like folding clothes, I'm going to be honest. See, I can wash all the clothes in the house all day, Lamar. I may not fold them up, but everything will be clean.
Yeah, she can live out of a basket for weeks. I'm not used to doing that, so that was a pet peeve.
Right. So my husband loved to fold up clothes. So then we compromised. I washed everything. He folded everything. And we did that for years until we started having someone else do it for us. But we did that for years. So it was unspoken. I washed, he fold. It was never an argument after that, because we just cater to each other's strengths. And it might be something small, but if people understood, those are things you might need to talk about. Because once you move into that house, what are you going to do? You're going to find that everybody's
totally right.
Yeah, cleaning patterns are different. That's why I really like the video. And if people wanted to purchase the video, how can they do that?
For more information, they can check out screening dates, because we're screening around the country, and they can purchase the DVD and view the trailer on the website for the film, which is www.westillstand.com.
So you say you're doing screenings around the country. Are you doing any in California on the West Coast?
We have not yet, but we're actually trying to pull some things together. And it's weird because we never have as much demand from the West Coast as we do from the East, but we always have some people that say, when are you going to bring them out here? We never get the stuff out here, so we're definitely looking at that this time around.
Fantastic. So again, give us that website one more time.
Sure. The website for the film is www.westillstand.com. Like I say, you can stay up to date with screenings. You can actually view the trailer for the film, and you can purchase the DVD right there online.
And also, too, we want to make sure that everybody check out your website, blackandmarriedwithkids.com. Are you on Facebook, on Twitter? If you can give us all that information.
Yep. Probably the easiest way to find us, if you go to blackandmarriedwithkids.com, is links to everything right there on the site. So you can find our Twitter page. You can find our Facebook page, which has over 100,000 fans on it. We have like a lively discussion, questions every day, links to great content. So everything off to blackandmarriedwithkids.com around us and our relationship and marriage articles, and everything for the film on westillstand.com.
Again, I want to thank you so much, Lamar, for coming on the show. And Joe, I want to thank you for joining me on the show today, too.
Yes, and thank you, Lamar. I really appreciate your time and website. Really, really great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks to the both of you.